Boy, oh boy, do I love when streamers tweet out this. I think this meets the definition of virtue signaling, because both of them said if Streamlabs doesn't resolve this matter immediately, they will stop using Streamlabs. Pokey, Hassan, what is it you want Streamlabs to do here? Honestly.
Whoa, the call out.
Face to face. You're not watching this video, but I'm going to pretend you are. Stream professor, I've been making streaming tutorials and OBS guides and educational content for streamers and content creators going back longer than OBS has existed. I have been trying to help educate the world, and with that, there's been plenty of conversations about Streamlabs the company and Streamlabs OBS, their fork of OBS Studio. I have always had major gripes with it. I've complained about it a lot. I have canceled the Streamlabs OBS masterclass that I promised you all years ago because I don't really want to support or promote them anymore. It's been a whole mess. But recently, specifically today, the night I'm recording this, it has kind of exploded. And instead of taking my sweet time and risking this conversation dying off a little bit, I want to keep it going. I want to have this conversation. If you've been struggling to follow what was said on the Twitter conversations, a bunch of Twitter threads, all of that, I think we should have this conversation. I think it's finally time to talk about what's going on here. So I had a different video planned for today. Honestly, I was too busy playing Halo to deal with it anyway. So we're rolling with this, and I'm going to do as minimal editing as possible. So we're going straight with the OBS screen caps for everything. But first and foremost, I want to walk you all through the history of Streamlabs. So Streamlabs started a few different ways, but how you may have first heard of it was as a service called Twitch Alerts. I even covered this back in my earlier videos about OBS. It was a service called Twitch Alerts. It allowed you to show alerts for people who followed and subscribed to your Twitch channel. It was a pretty cool concept. They weren't the only ones doing this, but they immediately branded themselves as the service for Twitch specifically and had since evolved from there. That evolution involved a few things. It was first founded in 2014 as that Twitch Alerts service and slowly started to evolve from there. They had eventually rebranded to the name Streamlabs, and in 2018, they actually just completely rebranded and sunset the twitchalerts.com website. They had previously rebranded already. 2018 is actually when they launched Streamlabs OBS, but along the way, they had some other acquisitions. They acquired Inkbot, which was, I believe, an open source stream bot that had things like counters, raffles, GameWisp integration. GameWisp was a cool service at the time. Discord integration, custom commands. They acquired this tool, which a lot of people were using, shut down the original tool, and made it a part of the Streamlabs chatbot, completely cutting off people who relied on Inkbot to begin with. And this was a controversial thing at the time, and it just kind of kept evolving from there. In I don't know what year this was exactly, they acquired a service called Bitstream, which was for mobile streaming, and this is how they turned it into, they shut down that service and turned it into their Streamlabs.
I would like to say for the record that I have been properly shat upon by every single one of you for apparently having, too many tabs. Lance, why do you have like 20, 30 tabs open, sometimes 50 tabs? How could you? What is this? Come on. I am definitely playing second fiddle.
Mobile application. And then in 2018, they launched Streamlabs OBS and caused a never-ending cycle of confusion, both for streamers and the OBS devs and everything like that, because Streamlabs OBS is a fork of OBS Studio. A fork in open source software terms means you take the existing code base that someone is producing and maintaining, and you send it in a different direction where you're developing your own program based on this core technology, but you're not contributing it back to the software because you're taking it in its own direction. So Streamlabs OBS takes the core functionality of OBS Studio, libOBS and some of the core features, and strips away a lot of the extra bloat of people that don't just do pure game streaming on Twitch would use, like multi-track audio and profile management and things like that. Some of that's probably been added back, but it took away a lot of that, slapped on a pretty new front end, built on Electron, which was actually quite bulky because Electron is effectively running a UI through Google Chrome. It's what Discord uses, Slack uses. It's not very resource handy. And then they made a bunch of bold claims about being more user-friendly and having AI generated or AI accelerated or generated like game profiles that would make your games look better. A lot of weird claims like that that turned out not to be true. And it was supposed to be better to run, which is what suddenly a flock of newbie streamers ran to, the promise of it being easier to use because OBS was super confusing at the time and didn't have a lot of accessibility features, and the idea of
I'm one of those people.
The problem was, it was only ever so slightly easy to use, and this competition did in fact encourage OBS devs to innovate and introduce things like the auto config wizard and plenty of other features that they're still integrating to this day. But it bred bad habits in terms of how you stream and how you end up using normal OBS once you graduate to standard OBS Studio. But it wasn't easier to run. In fact, it was more resource intensive because all of this extra gunk they keep piling it up with uses more resources. At no point was it lighter weight or faster than normal OBS Studio. The downsides of course, of it being a fork means that while it starts out super pretty, it had a bunch of cool features that OBS Studio didn't have, like the canvas thing when you drag your sources around, and snapping, and being able to view sources when they get outside of your canvas, and features. Eventually they added features like source record, which is now a dedicated plugin in OBS Studio, probably getting integrated later. But they added a bunch of features on top and made it look really nice and user-friendly at first. But as the years went on and OBS Studio developed more features, implemented things like the run as...
Sorry, I just saw someone post a link to Epos Fox's Twitch, and I was like, oh, cool, I didn't know Epos Fox had a Twitch. I will go follow, and then obviously immediately have been met with this. So, yeah, I apologize for the sounds. They shan't happen again or anymore. I failed you.
Admin fix back in 2018, things like that. It becomes harder and harder for the fork to take those features developed upstream and integrate it into their software, and it lagged further and further behind while just hyper monetizing the hell out of it. Streamlabs went all...
In serious news, though, this is fucked, okay? You've taken something like an open source software, which I love open source software, both the concept and the execution, and oftentimes a lot of it turns out to be incredible. I'm blown away sometimes by how good open source software can be. But then taking that open source, doing the fork, repackaging it, but stripping some of the features away that were already there to then say, hey, don't worry, we've got all these new fancy features that you're going to love, and bogging the whole thing down while making people pay for all these, like, you know, subscription services. Like, the whole thing is shady as fuck.
In on the monetization in terms...
And I was fooled by this, by the way. I was one of those people who, when I was downloading OBS, I was like, wait, there's an OBS and there's a Streamlabs OBS. What's the difference? And then I guess they're both open source, so they're both good. And Streamlabs is a little more user-friendly. I don't really know how to do this whole streaming thing yet. Okay, cool. I'll sign up and I'll take the Streamlabs OBS. It seems easier. And it's so much slower. Like, I cannot tell you the difference it made finally transferring everything over. It took a long time, but transferring everything over to OBS was so worth it.
In terms of themes, there was like a dedicated kind of plugin or feature store where you could buy the ability to use multiple profiles, lots of ridiculous stuff like that. And then they developed their own subscription service called Streamlabs Prime, which got you, well, I think first the subscriptions were for themes and for other things where you lose access to the visuals for your stream if you stop paying, which is dumb as hell, especially since you can literally copy paste the files out of the Streamlabs folder and still use them. But then they developed a subscription service for a website and things like that. And in fact, I made a video on that because while I didn't think it was the best service in the world, to easily get streamers up and running with their own website to represent themselves was kind of a win for some streamers who wanted to pay for that and not have to think about it too much. Like, it provides a good place, kind of like the link aggregators and things like that, and I wasn't necessarily against it. But things kept going from there. Now, the tweets you may have seen today are a culmination of how Streamlabs has always run, based on this core idea that I wanted to introduce you first, that Streamlabs is a fork of OBS Studio. The problem is they're still calling themselves Streamlabs OBS. They're still using the OBS name and trademark in their name, which the OBS developers were completely against. They basically begged them not to do that. And since then, as the OBS devs themselves have tweeted out, and we'll cover that in a minute, it has caused them nothing but frustration, as well as newbie streamers nothing but frustration, because they have effectively co-opted and hijacked an open source program and brand, developed their own hyper-monetized program on top of it, and then went after the branding and marketing and advertising for that open source project, which runs pure...
That's all so fucking shady. That's all so horrible. And it confuses the normies like me. I'm there, I'm like, I need streaming software. What does everyone use? Oh, everyone uses OBS. It's pretty much like standard issue. It's open source. It's pretty cool. It's like, oh, cool. OBS. There's this OBS and Streamlabs. So what's Streamlabs? Features more things, has advanced AI, cut down, slow 25. Okay, yeah, I guess this is the one I need. You don't even think twice about it.
Purely on donations and contributions from other software and solutions in order to operate, because they're not a for-profit company. It's a volunteer community open source project, and just completely screwed the OBS devs over. It was a complete nightmare. I heard lots of stories from the OBS devs and team members over the years about how horrible it has been ever since that, what that exchange was like, and they're finally coming out and talking about it. But first, let's get to their most recent attempt at re-releasing a program, because over the years, and actually we'll flip to the Wikipedia page for this one, they have released additional services such as CrossClip, a video converter that is probably based on another open source program. They also had, I recently covered, they have a program that remuxes your video files and edits them together where it doesn't have to re-encode unless you change the frames, which is basically
it's a Vancouver company?
AVI Demux, another open source program. They've got Oslo, a collaborative video editing tool, which I'm pretty sure I've seen the tool it's based off of. And then they have things like link in bio tools, things like that, where they acquire a bunch of other tools and integrate them into their paid version of their software. The most recent one that they have just announced, and in fact, I can pull up the announcement here. I did not have that pulled up ahead of time.
In San Fran.
They have announced Streamlabs Studio, which is what Streamlabs OBS should have been called, just to be clear.
Yeah, no shit.
Streamlabs Studio.
No shit. If it was just called Streamlabs, that sounds great. Streamlabs actually sounds better than Streamlabs OBS or Slobs. Like, you should just call it Streamlabs. Easy.
What is this font? Which is basically the ability to stream from your Xbox to Streamlabs, add in overlays, alerts, webcams, things like that, and then stream that from Streamlabs to Twitch to add the additional graphics and stuff without needing a dedicated computer. The problem is that service already existed. There was already an entire startup dedicated to this idea that had been integrated with Xbox ever since the Mixer days, called Lightstream. Lightstream was a wonderful service that I have talked about a few times on the channel. It was paid access, so it wasn't the most popular thing, but a paid service designed to do this exact same thing from the Xbox and PlayStation. You streamed to their cloud servers, add in your webcam and overlays and things like that, and it forwards it to Twitch. And it was a really cool innovation. And Streamlabs is apparently just completely ripping this off with Streamlabs Studio. Not only that, but they completely ripped off the branding page for it, the landing page, the download page for it. Not only the layout, the design, all of the core idea, but half or 90% of the marketing copy is completely plagiarized from the Lightstream page to the Streamlabs page. Not only that, the user reviews are the same. This is a pretty low-res image here. Let me see, open it a new tab. This is a pretty low-res image, and it's taken down now. Lightstream is literally one of the greatest things I've ever discovered. Thank you so much for making it so easy. Streamlabs Studio is literally one of the greatest things I've... Oh my god. Love this platform. Love this platform. They literally ripped the user reviews, and of course have completely made up these streamer names, completely plagiarized it. And so this was the final straw where a lot of companies and developers, representatives, whatever, have kind of talked about this behind the scenes. This was kind of the final straw where Lightstream had to at least try to make a meme out of it. So, of course, they had the typical, hey, can I copy your homework? Make it obvious you didn't copy. They didn't. To which Elgato responded, first time, I lost track. First time, because Streamlabs called their mobile phone Streamlabs controller the Streamlabs Stream Deck, which is an entire product released by Elgato. This is multiple...
Yeah, I know. I've got it in front of me right now. This is how we do all these things. This is all Stream Deck. That's wild. Oh man. Streamlabs, what are you doing?
Multiple instances of Streamlabs not only taking the core concepts, the core ideas, because it's not illegal or
what a bunch of thieves.
Even necessarily problematic to fork open source software, release it for your own, even sell it as long as you adhere to the GPL licensing and blah blah blah. It is, however, not in the GPL licensing to steal and violate their trademarks and their branding names. Like, that is not okay. That's not part of how open source licensing works. And the OBS team spoke out about this after, of course, the co-founder of Lightstream was super livid and was just like, yo, what the hell? They need to be ashamed. This is not acceptable. The OBS team spoke out and reminded everybody the story that I had heard behind the scenes so many times, that whenever Streamlabs reached out about using the OBS name, they specifically asked them not to, and they did so anyway, and followed up by filing a trademark. They have tried to sort it out in private, and they have been uncooperative at every turn. The consequences of this, which I have seen on my own channel in the comments section so many times, Users do not, and even companies, do not understand the difference between the two apps. Support volunteers are met with a flood of people that want support for Streamlabs OBS and get super mad, and people who even want a refund for Streamlabs services for something we're going to talk about in a moment, and the OBS devs cannot provide it because they're not associated with Streamlabs OBS. They're a group of volunteers trying to just support their own damn program. And even several companies that had not realized that the applications were separate. I've experienced the exact same thing in terms of trying to educate people on OBS Studio or having people come in my Discord asking for support.
Yeah, I know, you can never leave the
they're talking about Streamlabs OBS instead of OBS, and it's a nightmare. Not only that, as Rich, one of the developers, points out, and they do a lot of other stuff, they have targeted ads for OBS Studio. That if you search for OBS Studio, you reach Streamlabs OBS first. I'm going to pull this up in Firefox because I don't think I have ad block installed here. If we just pull up Google, I know for sure it's in Bing. OBS Studio. Okay, I'm not getting ads. We'll go to Bing. I don't know why I'm not getting ads, but the ads that you get are for Streamlabs OBS, completely misdirecting people. Right there, Streamlabs OBS. People who recognize the name Streamlabs, who use them for alerts, are gonna be like, whoa, that's what I need, and download it, and be mostly just completely led astray here. Completely unacceptable behavior. Already absurd. Literally the entire basis of this company has been built on this core idea of taking free open source tools, either buying them out and condensing them into their own stack, or hijacking their branding and their marketing and then hyper monetizing it. And if you've never actually looked at Streamlabs OBS, I cannot over exaggerate how hyper monetized their services are. It is absurd. And of course, other stories come into play with that as well. If you remember, when Streamlabs first started introducing their subscription services, one of the subscriptions they introduced was when you made a tip or a donation to a streamer, it would sign you up for Streamlabs Plus or Streamlabs Prime.
Oh, that was the worst. How many charity streams have we either been a part of or, like, you know, helped out with where everyone is like, why does it keep asking if I want to sign up for, like, Streamlabs Plus? And you're like, oh, that has nothing to do with the charity or anything. Just please ignore that. That's like, that is really ghoulish on top of everything else.
Plus or whatever. And it was opt out, not opt in. And so you'd go and fill out your PayPal or whatever and send a tip to your favorite streamer and then be subscribed and have recurring charges come out of your account for a service you didn't even know existed. It barely told you about. And when people complained about it, even within the company, they said they weren't going to fix it because it made them like too much money. Literally stealing money and not fixing it because it made them so much money and they could get away with it. What? Moving on, we have some other testimonials about this wonderful service. First and foremost, this one I want to be kind of dismissive of, but I want to analyze what happened here. This person says that they were contacted, ironically, through the form on their website, telling them that they'd have more success, signing them up for their Streamlabs Prime service. This was just a service they launched to provide websites to streamers. Like I said, wow. I did make a video about this at the time because I thought it was better than nothing for streamers. But the irony here being that they contacted them through their own website to try to set this up. And then later on, had a similar instance with merch. And this is not uncommon among lazy or inexperienced PR reps reaching out on behalf of services, completely not doing any research on the creator and often ignoring the very facts right in front of them that would make that business opportunity completely contradictory. But it's just kind of more fuel on the fire of the kinds of things they do. Moving on beyond that, we got some chat from some people who worked at Streamlabs OBS, how multiple people who worked in the marketing team were completely fired and let go for speaking up against these unethical business practices that we have been talking about. Now, this actually makes a lot of sense to me because I was actually working with the Streamlabs people around the time that the Prime thing launched and all of that with a specific set of people who were completely fine to work with. And then out of nowhere, every contact that I had were just gone. Just gone. Suddenly they had new people who were contacting me like they were strangers, and everyone that I had talked to were just suddenly gone. Apparently, they basically got rid of the entire marketing team by the end of 2018. And apparently they just have a bad habit of firing or pushing out anyone who suggests anything else, including people complaining about people who don't do their jobs, someone who was being stubborn about making their TwitchCon booth wheelchair accessible. Absolutely insane. And then that, of course, is talking about the auto sub to Streamlabs Plus and all of that. And literally, remember when we were trying to tell them to restructure it? They just dodged the issues because they knew it would lose them a ton of money.
Thing after thing after thing.
Right, someone who worked for Streamlabs. It was the #1 support request ticket, was people getting falsely signed up for this service and wanting to unsubscribe, complaints all the time, and told it wasn't going to be fixed. Just absolutely insane. So then, of course, whenever these things come up, big streamers who are associated with these things have to save their face, right? They have to save face.
Is there an alternative to Streamlabs for pop-ups and things? Because I still use Streamlabs in some respect. I use Streamlabs for the pop-ups because it's like you just copy the code into your browser and that makes the thing go. Stygian says yes. Okay, I'm gonna have to switch over completely. This is beyond the pale. I've reached the limits. Epos Vox has a video on it. Okay, all right, I'll have to watch that. Stream Elements. Okay, are they as fun? Oh man, it's gonna take so much time to add all those Dave gifs of him doing things every time someone subs. It's all right though. It's okay, fine. It's for the greater cause. You know, I need to wash my hands of this. You know, I'm basically Hamlet. I'm gonna have to wash the blood from my hands.
So we get the lovely
Lucian
pair
Fox didn't like Elements.
of Pokimane
Okay.
and Hassan tweeting that they will never ever use Streamlabs again unless they resolve this matter. We'll get to that in a moment. And Pokimane specifically, who is used for marketing materials and their own website and things like that for Streamlabs itself. And in fact, if we go to streamlabs.com
Epos will
here,
teach you. Okay.
I'm not logged in, you will see Pokimane right there.
That's true. I never thought about that. But yeah, every single time you open it. Yeah. Well, just
never figured out who he
so unfazed towards the Streamlabs login page.
is. But this graphic's been on their website for like years at this point.
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy, do I love when streamers tweet out this. I think this meets the definition of virtue signaling, because both of them said if Streamlabs doesn't resolve this matter immediately, they will stop using Streamlabs. Pokey, Hassan, what is it you want Streamlabs to do here? Honestly.
Whoa, the call out.
Face to face. You're not watching this video, but I'm going to pretend you are. What is it you yourself want Streamlabs to do here?
Wait, you're massive, aren't you? You're pretty huge. Yeah, 296,000. By the way, I'm going to subscribe. Great channel. They're going to watch this. If you're getting a call out from like a 300K YouTuber, they're going to address it.
I want them to resolve, to completely change the name of their entire program that they have used for 3 years now, to undo all of their business practices, to unsteal the things they have stolen, to unfire the people they have fired. I'm not sure what they expect the result here to be other than a lame-ass apology, because the whole build-up that I've been setting up here is that the things that have come out today have been completely just in line with the culture and the entire basis of Streamlabs as a company. Borrow, steal, and recreate and buy out as much as possible and hyper monetize, and then get purchased by Logitech.
To be fair, in the interest of full disclosure, I had no idea it was this bad. I didn't know they went this far, because I knew OBS was open source. I knew Streamlabs was obviously using like their code and all that kind of stuff, but I assume that's just like that's what a lot of companies do. There's probably a lot of other companies that have taken open source software and then use it as their own. I didn't know it went as far as this. I think it was Avail in chat who said this is pretty much the same thing if someone took Blender, if Adobe took Blender and then called it, you know, the Blender Creative Cloud and something like that, and then started selling it. Like, you're just like, holy shit, that's fucking shady. In addition to everything else, you know, that's been revealed through this.
In 2019 for a metric buttload of money. I don't know at what point someone saying, oh, I'm not going to use Streamlabs anymore unless they fix this. I don't know what Streamlabs could do to fix this, because this is the entire basis of their company and their service. There is no fixing this. Streamlabs is inexcusable. The company itself, there is nothing redeemable about the company, the things they've acquired, the way they've handled their business.
I mean, that's true. They've shown you time and time again, when left to their own decision making, hey, we've got this idea. Why don't we implement, whenever someone donates to a streamer they like, or they donate even to a charity stream because the streamer's fundraising money, we do this opt-out like checkmark thing. So they have to automatically sign up for our services. That is fucked. That's just like, that's really shady business practices. But then afterwards being like, oh, you know what, we're gonna have to remove that because we're getting a lot of complaints. But then being like, oh, wait, oh, it makes lots of money. Oh, okay, well then no, keep that going. Let's keep making that money.
The way they have worked with partners, the way they've worked with their employees, the way they have worked with OBS, the very basis of their program's existence. There's no way to redeem that. There's no redemption arc here. They've already made too much money, even if they shut down tomorrow. Like, no one involved in that shutdown is redeemable either.
Yeah,
Like,
I agree with all this.
of course they get to just walk away with the millions and millions of dollars they've made. What do you expect to happen here? Top tier streamers calling out a company kind of inconsequentially? And that just kind of leaves us with the conclusion. But before we get to that, I do want to get to Streamlabs' response to Lightstream. Just to follow it up with one last little sting here from Streamlabs. We made a mistake. Text on the landing page was placeholder text that went into production by error. This is our fault. We've removed the text as soon as we found out. Our intended version is now live. Lightstream team is great, and we've reached out directly to them to apologize. You want to know what placeholder text is? Placeholder text is that weird stuff you see on some blogs or pages that are broken that is a bunch of Latin gibberish. Lorem ipsum blah 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 blah, but people have it memorized like pie. I don't. Lorem ipsum blah 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 blah. A bunch of Latin auto-generated kind of text that has been used as the standard for placeholder text on the web for pretty much its entire existence. It exists for a reason. You don't plagiarize someone else as your placeholder text unless you're plagiarizing them, especially the user reviews. This isn't a mistake, or as some people are trying to defend it as, some graphic designer that needs punished and ran away with an idea. This is fundamentally how the entire company operates. They saw this service, they recreated it, they literally copy-pasted the entire landing page for that other service, verbatim for most of the marketing copy and user reviews and layout and all of it. And while I do believe that they did not intend to launch with that stolen marketing copy in place, it fully 100% reveals that the intention of copying it and more or less plagiarizing it overall was 100% what they were going for from the beginning. You don't start out your own landing page or your own product release as plagiarism of someone else's as accidental placeholder text. That is 100% a complete look behind the mirror of their intentions, and there is literally no apology they could give that makes up for that, aside from admitting that that's what they're doing and how their business runs. So I end this video. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, you should never use Streamlabs or Streamlabs OBS again. Well, actually,
I will. You should probably not use Streamlabs or Streamlabs OBS again. OBS is better. It's faster. It's just a better one.
Probably told you many times, especially in our Discord and Twitter over the years, to stop using Streamlabs OBS. Please do. It's a terrible piece of software. It does absolutely nothing for you. OBS is fine. I have countless guides and will happily help walk you through a transition on our Discord server if you need additional help. Plenty of videos on the subject. OBS Studio is just fine, more powerful, expandable by plugins, and actually less resource intensive than Streamlabs OBS. So I will tell you to stop using that. I'm not going to tell you what to do with your alerts. I will say that I have lazily stuck with Streamlabs OBS, or Streamlabs for the alerts and for my chat boxes and things like that over the years, just because it's been a little too involved to set everything up again on another service, but I'm pretty sure I'm moving to Stream Elements or another similar service. Stream Elements' OBS plugin is also horrible. Don't use that, but their service is fine. I'm not going to stream again until I have my replacement alerts set up, even if they're just generic alerts. Until I have my new alerts set up and swapped over, I'm never touching Streamlabs again. I already kind of burned some bridges with them in the past. I'm going to continue to do so. And this message is the people over at Logitech, who, other than the stream cam that they were terrified to send me, have been totally fine to work with. This is the company that you've bought. To Logitech, to the big streamers who've partnered with the companies and clearly not vetted the process that they've gone through, you know, like your skincare companies, this is the company you've been working with the whole time. At no point was this a bad decision they have to backtrack. This has been the company, how it's operated, and how it's been since the beginning. Logitech, this is the company you acquired and funded and legitimized on the market. Streamers, this is the company you've had your branding on and promoted on your own streams. This is the reality. This isn't suddenly a change in their philosophy. This is how they've operated for years. If you're actually going to do something about it, you just need to do it. Screw you, Streamlabs. I don't know what else to say. I don't like being super combative, but really, where do we go from here? Go check out my merch, eposvox.gg/merch. Obviously, I couldn't put a sponsor.
Oh, that was great. Good breakdown. And yeah, okay, so I'll slowly start migrating over to the other one and seeing how I can integrate it. Stream Elements. Guess I'll need a tutorial on how to do that as well. So there's that. But yeah, 10 out of 10. Cool dude. Sorry, software engineer, this has been an argument forever. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to watch. I mean, I haven't been using Streamlabs OBS for a long time, but I'm using Streamlabs like pop-ups and stream elements for a while too.
This will come down to who can deliver the lower propensity and mid propensity voters.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Just, we will build a ladder to heaven to deliver you the daily news. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are your most humble of clownish jesters. To our lords, Trevor R. and Alexander Thaler, you have our undying fealty. To our knights of the round table, Nate, that one guy, Hagbird Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariana McCarthy, Daniel Sutton, Ants are still running the world, Coulter Smith, Tom Groh, Val 9000, Jenna Tal, Quiet 185, Anna Loves Riley, Riley and Anna, Omni, Poodlehawk, The Tim Caucus, Multimondi, Trevor Janis, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojack, Saren 42, Chronic to Hemphog, Catherine, Radical Maniac, Ramon Acosta, Incosin, Violent Orchard, Sophie Baby, Political Puppy, Andreas Chiringuito, Zach Christensen, Josh Mickelson, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We shall meet you in the tavern, and we raise a drink, and we salute you.